It's absolutely huge, and it's near and dear to kind of the mission of what I feel of a patrol sergeant especially is required to do.
Is that thought? So if you're on, you submit an itinerary 8A to 4P for the week, and then you decide after the second day that, hey, I'm not going to come in at 8, I'm going to come in at 10. This gives you that flexibility to make the
it works, and absolutely. It works for both days and nights. So say we have a staff meeting at 2 o'clock. So the lieutenant scheduled a staff meeting at 2 o'clock. The swing shift sergeant wasn't due to come on until 4. He comes on at 2 to facilitate that. And then he could still stay out until 2 a.m. with his troops. It also lets a sergeant stay over or come in early or come in late. Say, for example, we're having a winter weather event like we are in Bend right now. If I'm sure Darren, if it was going to be significant enough, he could then roll on. Instead of coming on at 9, he could come on at 7, or even at 6 and take an hour overtime, 2 hours straight, and work it. And then come in and help the troops and help manage some of the slide off crashes and stuff like that. That's the flexibility that I think is crucial for those unforeseens, and it happens on a pretty regular basis. I'd say at least that need exists probably anywhere from 2 to 20 times a month, depending on where you're stationed and what outpost or what area command you're at.
Darren?
Yeah, like for me, working 8s during the day, I go in with pursuit reviews to do, a whole laundry list of stuff that I need to get done, and you've got calls for service, you've got troops coming in that need to chat. So I get to the end of my day and I've still got stuff on the burner. I commonly go over the 8-hour day shift or the 8-hour period almost every week. And then instead of charging the department overtime for going over, it's nice to have that flexibility without dinging overtime constantly. I run into that constantly. Instead of taking the hours off at the end of the week, it'd be nice to have that flexibility.
I have a question.
Does that make sense?
So on the very first paragraph of 16.2.2 is the employee may also change his or her itinerary subject to supervisor's approval with no liability to the department. So it just feels like there's flexibility in that language already. So I'm not sure why you would need, whether it's 2 hours or 4 hours or an hour.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay.
Okay. What do you do when the lieutenant's not there? What do you do when the lieutenant's gone? What do you do? This is for the sergeant that's adjusting on the fly. I can tell you how many times, and you're off at 4 p.m. The 4 p.m. car comes in and he's like, hey, guess what I got into last night, Sergeant? And he wants to come in your office and talk for an hour. You know how many times you stay and do that for free because you don't really have the authority at that point in time to adjust your schedule? We're doing this already. We're just now putting language behind what the practice is occurring daily.
So I know this is not the intent, but what prevents a sergeant from just every day flexing and then taking that last day off?
That could happen.
So nothing prevents it. And so in theory, with that language, you could work a 410 because you could flex every day.
But you would never sign contract language that said they were on 410s. Think about that.
Well, there's the caveat that it's in order to avoid overtime liability.
Yeah. You're still scheduled 5/8. So day shift patrol sergeant.
I don't think that it would prevent it. They would have to prove that they were working the entire time.
And I guess, this gets down to a management issue as far as I could tell, which would be, so let's just pretend that you had a sergeant that was trying to sort of finagle the system, not that anyone ever would, but if they did. The manager then would be saying, why are you working overtime on this day? Mm-hmm. And if there's not a valid reason for the overtime, then that becomes a management issue in terms of you can flex your schedule when there's work that needs to be done that's urgent. Not, oh, hey, I'm gonna get caught up on my my general paperwork that I haven't got to for a week and then flex my schedule. But it would need to be some sort of urgent circumstance or necessary or operationally reasonable at least.
Because you have stuff that's time sensitive all the time that has to get done. You have BPRs that have to be done within a certain, you have complaints that have to be completed with a certain amount of time.
You would also save overtime though.
And a lot of
8 hours of overtime if you did that.
Yeah, a lot of times you're on your way out the door.
Saving the overtime, how would that work? Because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is really